Welcome to today's edition of the IntoTexas AI podcast. It's your look at AI news and trends impacting Texas. I'm your host, Shannon Ballou. Let's get started. This spring, thousands of graduates walked across stages at universities across the country. And in many commencement speeches, one topic in particular generated instant and often heated feedback from the graduates: artificial intelligence. For some, AI represents a powerful new tool as they start their new career. But for other graduates, it raises fear and uncertainty, and it triggers some uncomfortable questions. For instance, will the careers they train for still look the same by the time they start them? Will they even have careers? These are scary but relevant questions across disciplines, including the field of engineering. But it's not only graduates who are wondering about the future of engineering. Infrastructure companies are facing similar questions and looking for those opportunities inside of the uncertainties. And one of the world's leading infrastructure companies, Dallas-based AECOM, is not willing to sit on the sidelines. Instead, they are making big bets that AI will reshape how engineers work and how the work of infrastructure gets accomplished. From a recently announced partnership with Southern Methodist University to its own aggressive push into AI through a strategic acquisition, AECOM seems to be a company that wants to redefine what it means to be an engineering firm in the AI era. So looking at what this strategic partnership between AECOM and SMU really means. It was announced last month in April, and the program is really about AI-driven infrastructure research and workforce development. At the center of the partnership is a doctoral fellowship program within SMU's Lyle School of Engineering. So the way that it's set up is that students will work on real-world engineering challenges under the joint guidance of SMU researchers and AECOM technical leaders. So this is more than just an academic collaboration. It's really a deliberate attempt to create a talent pipeline. And infrastructure is an industry that very much depends on having a workforce pipeline of engineers. So it seems like the company is effectively saying, we need engineers who understand both infrastructure and artificial intelligence, and we are willing to help build that workforce ourselves. In fact, when announcing the partnership, Troy Rudd, who serves as chairman and CEO at AECOM, stated in the press release, quote, "This partnership with SMU reflects our commitment to talent and innovation, translating advanced AI research into practical solutions and meaningful careers that support resilient, future-ready communities." So why are graduates paying attention? Other than for the obvious reasons? Well, this year's commencement season highlighted a growing frustration, as we talked about. Students are entering the workforce at a moment when AI is changing nearly every profession. And that naturally does create a lot of uncertainty, even for engineering graduates. And I think traditionally, engineering has offered a safe, steady career path that's thought to be couched in a good deal of job security. But that seems to be changing, as it is with so many other fields. In fact, early in 2025, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg went on the Joe Rogan podcast and made a very bold proclamation. He said that he thought that AI would replace a lot of mid-level engineers or mid-level engineer functionality by the end of 2025. Well, clearly we're halfway through 2026, and that hasn't happened in totality, but we've definitely seen the changes in the workforce, and engineers have definitely felt, some of that heat from those changes, especially those junior and even maybe some of the mid-level engineers. But look, the flip side of his comment was also that he believes that that transition does mean that human engineers can then focus on higher level problem solving. So a common topic that we discuss a good bit here at IntoTexas is that, yes, these roles are changing. In some respect, they are going away, but we have to look at what does that mean And it really means that the roles are evolving into something maybe a little bit different, but back to the key thing that humans still bring is that ability for critical thinking, for strategic thinking, right? So Zuckerberg, I think, was saying, that same thing. It's yes, some functionality is being replaced by technology, but that critical thinking, it opens up more time for the humans to do that strategic critical thinking process. And look, Zuckerberg wasn't the only one who's made these statements. As early as 2026, the first part of this year, we've heard echoes of the same sentiment from other tech titans, including CEOs from NVIDIA, Anthropic, and even Microsoft's AI CEO. So I think everyone is acknowledging that yes, change is in the air for engineers. But AECOM's message to students is, I think, fundamentally optimistic. The future engineer, again, it's not being replaced, it's being upgraded in a sense, right? So tomorrow's most valuable engineers will combine technical expertise, systems thinking, and the ability to direct AI tools responsibly. And I think that's a key word, responsibly. And now let's look at AECOM's broader AI strategy, because I think the partnership with SMU and developing that future pipeline of a workforce is just one piece of what they seem to be focusing on when it comes to AI. In fact, in late 2025, AECOM acquired a Norwegian AI company called Consigli for approximately $390 million. That's a huge investment for an infrastructure company like AECOM. And Consigli developed what it called the autonomous engineer. Its platform was designed to automate portions of engineering calculations, building information modeling, design optimization, and construction documentation. Now, supporters of the technology claim that it can significantly reduce engineering time during early design phases. So we also have to think, though, that even if the real world gains are smaller, the implications can be substantial, because you have to realize, if you don't already, that infrastructure projects are expensive, they're highly complex, and unfortunately, they frequently get delayed for various reasons. So, reducing design cycles and improving decision making could create some major competitive advantages for a company like AECOM and other engineering firms. All right, let's talk about now why this matters for the infrastructure industry as a whole. As we start to talk about that, I should share that I've spent nearly a decade in the infrastructure engineering space working for a global infrastructure software company. And I got to spend a lot of time tracking AI in the infrastructure industry, and was privileged to be able to speak with lots of leaders from global AEC firms like AECOM down to very small engineering firms, many of those based here in Texas. And I will say that the pain points that they share across them are many, from a shortage of the right skill set for workers to just dealing with the actual digital transformation that's been occurring in the industry. So what AECOM is doing right now is, I think, addressing a really, truly legitimate industry pain point, and multiple pain points, in fact. And I should also mention that just a couple of months ago, I had the pleasure of getting to hear a short talk from AECOM's Troy Rudd during an AI conference. And he shared today's approach in the industry, saying that it's a very linear process for the desired outcome. And projects take a long time, they're complex, as we've mentioned, and they also include multiple types of engineers across the construction process. Now, right after Rudd spoke, we also got to hear from AECOM's head of AI for engineering, Jan Os Jacobsen, who also spoke about the company's view on AI. And apologies if I brutally messed up the pronunciation of her name. It's a lovely Norwegian name. But she noted that LLMs can't do engineering yet. AI for engineering instead is using deep knowledge to build models. And those AI models then reduce the complexity and create a better performance with more value. She said, quote, AI takes us from fragmented disciplines to a system as a whole. Now, I should mention that she is also the former CEO of Consigli, the company that AECOM acquired in November. But in addition to the pain points that both she and Rudd mentioned, infrastructure engineering is also facing serious workforce challenges. And again, I heard this consistently from all size of companies that work in the infrastructure ecosystem. So one, you've got to understand that the workforce there now is aging. So like many industries, right, we have a very mature workforce, but that's especially true in infrastructure. So they're retiring, they're aging out of the population for work. So this leads to a definite shortage of professionals. And now with the introduction of AI in particular, we're also seeing this shortage of professionals who understand both engineering, the complexity that's involved, as well as understand the advanced digital tools that are required in the industry today. Now, there's also additional challenges for just the expectation of faster delivery of projects with better sustainability, and then having to do it all on much tighter budgets. But AECOM appears to believe that AI can help address all of these challenges, but only if the right talent is in place. So let's talk about engineering firms that are starting to behave more like technology companies. So before we continue talking about the workforce and the engineers and what this means to students, I think this is just an interesting point, and I just wanted to bring it up. We're at a point where we're watching kind of a fascinating transition, right? As we see SaaS companies taking big hits because of AI and the capabilities that now can be brought in directly into companies versus using the software from these third-party vendors, right? And when you look historically then at engineering firms, they would traditionally license software from outside vendors. That's just the standard process. Well, it's fascinating to see that AECOM's recent moves around AI might suggest a different approach. Rather than simply purchasing third-party tools only, the company is investing directly in proprietary AI technology and specialized talent, academic partnerships, as we've seen with the partnership with SMU, and really looking towards that long-term workforce development pipeline. And really, this is how technology companies think. The goal is not just to use AI. The goal is to integrate AI into core workflows and continuously improve how that work is performed. So again, it's just kind of an interesting point in time when we're seeing these transitions across industries and companies. And I think it's going to be fun to continue to watch. If you're really interested in this and what it means for AECOM and more about their strategy, I would suggest that you listen to their earnings call where they talk more about this. It's just, again, maybe because have spent so much time in that industry recently, but it is really fascinating. And look, all of us benefit from the outcomes of these projects we're talking about, right? Roadways, bridges, water, energy. That's all part of that infrastructure industry and what AECOM in particular does. But there's a reality check to this as well, because of course this transformation isn't going to happen overnight. Infrastructure projects are highly regulated. Safety is so critical. They're customized often to local conditions and requirements and issues, and they are very dependent on these complex engineering systems. So AI isn't going to eliminate those realities or eradicate them substantially overnight for certain. And so engineering firms are going to have to deploy these tools responsibly with all of this in mind. But I think this is why AECOM, like many other leaders in the industry, you'll see them consistently emphasize responsible AI, because in infrastructure, mistakes can have serious consequences to the public, to humans. They're real challenges. But the opportunity is also enormous. but so is responsibility. We have to, as always, remember that it's about balance. Now let's talk about the role of Dallas in all of this, because I always like to bring it back to Texas. And look, Texas is truly a fast-growing infrastructure market. We've got population growth, energy expansion, transportation investment, our water systems, the data centers, right? It's all increasing demand for that engineering expertise. And I think that Dallas and North Texas really is in the middle of a lot of that. So we've got the global engineering firms, research universities, investment capital, and certainly a lot of AI innovation happening here locally. So what begins in North Texas may end up influencing projects across the globe. And in fact, the work that AECOM does today reaches well beyond Dallas and well beyond Texas. They deliver critical infrastructure projects across the globe. Now, let's get back to what all of this means for those new graduates who haven't been so happy to talk about AI and hear about it in commencement speeches this spring. For those students graduating in 2026, this story, Beyond the Partnership, I think carries an important lesson. AI is definitely impacting all of our work, our careers, but there is also value to come from AI. However, we need to understand when to use AI, how to validate its output, and where human judgment remains essential. And then how do we apply the technology responsibly? So again, responsibility, human oversight, human interaction, that remains consistent regardless of any technology that enters into how we work in our everyday lives and career, right? But look, again, infrastructure is critical for everyone. We all benefit from these projects, and engineers are absolutely needed. They will always be needed. I think engineering careers are definitely evolving, but they're not disappearing. They're changing. So when you look at the partnership between AECOM and SMU, I think you are seeing more than a local collaboration. You're really seeing a global infrastructure leader investing in technology, but also talent, and investing in using AI responsibly, and looking at and investing in the future of engineering itself. For graduates, no doubt, AI can feel uncertain. And for companies like AECOM, it also represents an opportunity to reinvent how engineering expertise is applied in such critical ways. So for Dallas, this is also a chance to help shape what the next generation of engineering careers will look like. The future of infrastructure will depend on human judgment, creativity, and accountability. And how AI plays into that future continues to evolve. But it's clear that some of the earliest chapters of that future are being written right here in Texas. That's it for today's episode of the IntoTexas AI podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, to listen. And if you enjoy getting insights about how AI is reshaping Texas, I do invite you to continue watching the podcast. Please share it with others and subscribe. Thank you. I'm Shannon Ballou. I'll see you next time.